and all the other companies that we deal with here today. Today with Doug and Austin, kind of talking about really a little bit of your story to some degree, right? Okay. It's kind of what the plan is. So,
I'm scared.
The thought really being in how people go from what everyone sees, right? So when everyone thinks of Inventure real estate, they think residential real estate, right? They think about not being commercial buildings, or like, how do you even invest into commercial, right? Because it's this big scary thing. Well, in your background, I'll lead into a little bit and then you can dig into it from there, but you started with technically single family rentals, student housing.
That's right.
And then you moved into commercial, right? So today we want to talk about more about the transition, what's hard, what's easier about it, and like why people should make the transition or stay in single family, right? There's definitely a lot of people that's probably the right path for them. So maybe let's start with that. So let's talk, maybe dig into a little bit about your story, Doug, on when you got into single family, why and how. Let's just start with that.
Yeah. So my story kind of started with a friend of mine who was looking to transition out of his single family rentals. So he had 4 buildings down in the St. Cloud State University campus. 40 apartments, give or take, and he was looking to go out to Arizona and fly skydiving airplanes, of all things, right? And he was looking to generate some cash to buy an airplane. Yeah. And Greg, if you're watching this, a good friend of mine yet today. Greg and I are very good friends. And so he approached me, and we were doing some renovations for us. So we had the construction company going. This was probably right around 2000. So the construction company had been going for about 4 years. So we were successful with that, but we were still pretty small, 2 or 3 people. I was still working out in the field as a carpenter. And so I can remember Greg wanted the new staircase built on one of these apartments. And so he brings me over, we put on the steps and get all finished up. He's like, "You want to buy this?" I'm like, "Greg, I don't have a clue what you're talking about." And he's like, "Well, this rental, like I want to move on." And I'm like, "Well, I don't know how to do that." And so Greg, he was really my first mentor into just understanding a little bit about real estate. And, because my family wasn't in real estate, I didn't have anybody that was tied to real estate. Yeah. So my journey was like, I was a full-on novice when it came to the knowledge base, the things needed. I could fix it, I could build it, but I didn't know how to operate it. Mm-hmm. And so we started working on the financing of it a little bit. And at that time, I was putting all my dollars back into the construction company. So I'm like, "Greg, I need to understand how am I going to get a bank loan." And so he started talking to me about a few different things, which seller carrybacks, obviously finding investors, right? And so that combination was actually the way that this deal got done. So let's just call it $1 million deal. I was 25 at the time, right? So I was extremely young, and I don't want to say I didn't have any business being there, because in all of what I've done, my journey was more about going through the school of hard knocks than go to college and commit and figure it out. Yeah. And I think it's an interesting compliment, because you went to real estate courses and graduated in real estate with your degree at St. Cloud State, and my degree was bumping into brick walls and backing up and trying something again. So that's what I think gives us a unique value at Inventure today. So fast forward, we got the deal, started the structure, and Greg's like, "Hey, I'll carry back $100,000 of this, so you guys have some equity." And then I leveraged a relationship I had with a gentleman to say, "Hey, would you give me some dollars for the rest of the financing that I need for equity?" And I think at the time, this is 2000, remind you, he gave me $40,000 at 15% interest.
Crazy.
So you want to talk about getting leveraged, but it was so amazing at that time. The rents were high. The whole deal, like I said, was under $1 million for 4 buildings, and it cash flowed. Yeah. Like I paid off that investor, I want to say, in like 3 years.
And you don't see that anymore.
Oh my God.
I mean, that is just, you don't, but I mean, you look back into it and everything that you just said, think of all the stuff you hear online, right? Like, how do you get into your first deal? Well, seller carry, maybe you find investors. Well, your first deal, you were able to do both.
Yep.
Like, that doesn't really happen, right? Normally, it's like, get into a duplex, I'll rent half of it, right? But that's what led you into where you're at today. But think of like that structure of how does somebody who wants to even get into any kind of real estate buy a duplex? Right? Like, what kind of advice do you have for somebody trying to just do that, the bare minimum?
So number one, find a mentor. Find somebody that's in the business, that's willing to give you a little bit of direction.
Yep.
Right? Because again, my direction was commit and figure it out. Probably not the right way in today's world, right? And what I say about today's world is you've got so many more barriers to entry and just things that can go wrong legally. Like, I think about 2000 compared to 2026, the legal ramifications of renting bad, having bad leases, following all of the structures that residential leasing, right? I mean, it's pretty in depth and one that can end you up in court pretty quickly. So find a mentor, find somebody that you can count on. And I think about all the things that we see online that gets pushed at us, right? For propaganda to hire me to do this, get this book, buy this course. If you don't know anything, spending $1,000 on a course to learn something, to give you that structure, the basis, is probably the best money you can spend. 100%. It's going to feel like a ton of money, but it's going to springboard you forward into at least having some confidence in the first steps of what you're going to do.
Some conversations, or you can get some kind of help with somebody who's doing it way past you, but you can talk with somebody like yourself and be like, this is what I'm looking at, like, what do you think about this? Like, how did you do it? Why did you do it that way? What's like some structure ideas and so forth?
And the other way might end up being that you take on a partner, right? Maybe there's a partner in the industry that you look up to that you're like, wow, if I could be like him, take the deal to him. He or she might look at this and go, wow, this is a great deal, Austin. Maybe I could partner with you on this first one. Yeah, you're giving away half the profit. Everybody thinks about going, oh my God, I'm giving away half the profit. I think about how I fast forward, when we started with Inventure, and it was kind of the lone wolf mentality, right? All the properties were kind of held by myself. And today we partner with, every one of our properties has a partnership, right? And I think about how that springboard really helped our organization, how our partnership helped each other grow. And we're way better together than we are individually. So taking that attitude towards your first rental might be a unique way to get in.
Yeah, and what did you think when you were in the mix of it? So you acquired it, right? And now you're managing it. How was it managing it, right? You're running the business, right? So you knew how to manage some people, right? So you had a couple employees at that point. But how was it trying to figure out how to manage those assets?
So I think I'll step it quick. So commercial real estate where we're in, right? Multifamily, and then there's student rental, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about, I jumped into the worst managed asset class.
What did you have, like, as an owner, what did you have to do? Like, what was the management like?
The management was like answering phone calls at 3 o'clock in the morning because the kids were partying, right?
Yeah.
And so you'd scream, I'd jump in my Suburban, I'd fly down to St. Cloud State to go break up a party and get there and there was no party. So somebody called in like a false alarm. And as landlords, especially in St. Cloud, and I'm guessing other municipalities are this way, I had 3 strikes and I lost my rental license.
Oh, yeah.
So you did everything you could to try and get to that party before the police did, to bust it up and do it. And, so managing them was not a fun thing, right? I think about, like, we plowed all the snow. We were very, very hands-on. It was arduous. You're trying to do your day job, and all of a sudden you've got somebody that can only meet at 2:30 in the afternoon. I had 2, I can't even think of their names. There were 2 hockey guys, really good hockey players, and their dad would literally write me a check for the whole rent for the whole year and say, never call me back. Well, what does that tell you about your renters, right? There's going to be some problems.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was the management of it. I built a new contract and that was fine, but it really didn't matter, right? I mean, the students did what the students wanted to do. You'd have everything that was broken could be broken, and so you're there every weekend, every Saturday, every Sunday fixing stuff.
And you couldn't really, because of that type of building, those type of rentals, like, you can't hire somebody to do it, right?
No.
You talk about paying your loan off, like, you would have made no money if you'd had somebody else doing it, so you had to do it.
You had to do it.
There's no real scale of, like, the time of, okay, now I'm going to bring somebody in, and I could hire somebody, right, to bring it in, but then you're still paying them, and then you're still losing money.
It's interesting because I contemplated right at the end before I sold them. So I held them for about 4 years. And right before I was getting ready to sell them, I contemplated hiring a rental management company.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, I'm giving away almost all my profit. And I'm like, how do these companies make this work, right? And I'm like, quickly realized that, yeah, I might have been making a lot of good money managing and doing all this on my own, but I was really just paying myself an hourly wage.
But that's always a mistake that people make, right? People get into real estate, they get into single family, get into whatever it is, they jump feet in, but then they're managing doing all of it, and they're like, oh, I'm making all this money. Well, what's your time worth?
Yep.
Right? Nobody calculates your time for what it was worth. But so then you sold it, right? So go into like that sales process, when you sold it, how that happened, and like what you did from the sale into the next piece of real estate, like that transition.
Sure. So with the sale, it was kind of a broken up sale because there were two gentlemen that wanted some of the rentals, and then St. Cloud State, the university, wanted two of the rentals. And so we ultimately did and so again, early on in real estate, been in construction for a little while, and all of a sudden I'm in the middle of this eminent domain case.
No.
Right? And so you laugh, but it's like Doug got thrown feet first into...
What is eminent domain?
Okay, good. Yeah, thank you. So eminent domain is a process by which state, federal, companies, cities can leverage a situation where they really want this piece of property. And I'll use an example in a second. But so this entity wants to take this piece of property for its own use. So it might be a state that wants to put a new highway through here. Sometimes and there were some really big cases out on the East Coast with Walmart, who literally wanted to put up a new store. I think it was in like Virginia or somewhere, and they leveraged the city to go take these buildings from through eminent domain. Well, the city's people came back and said, whoa, 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 you're taking property as this entity of the city for Walmart, who is a for-profit company.
That's what Best Buy corporate happened too, right?
It could have been, right? Yeah. There was a few cases where it got a little bit tenuous. So anyhow, they'll send you a letter and saying, hey, Doug, we're really interested in buying your property. We'll make you an offer. And you look at it and you're like, that offer is not good enough. So there's a process, right? Yep. So the second step of the process then is literally you fire back what you think you want, and it's 30 days or whatever it is, and I'm simplifying this greatly, but then you look at your offer and you send it back to them, and they're like, nah, Doug, we're not really interested in this offer. Well, then the third step is like literally not even a mediation, it's just they get to make their best and final, and then they take it. Yep. Now there's a lot of steps in the process along the way, but in simple terms, you still can lose your property.
Yeah, regardless.
It doesn't
matter.
It does not matter. And so St. Cloud State started this eminent domain process, and I'm like, what is this? How does it work? And again, I was a lone wolf, didn't think I needed legal guidance, and so I'm just on this journey learning and going as I progressed. Luckily, it worked out for me. So my counter offer to them was considerably higher, and they just took it. So I never had to go to stage 3. Worked out for me, but I know lots of people I've talked to over my career now that have walked into eminent domain cases thinking they're going to win, and they don't get quite what they want, right? And it's a process of getting appraisals. It isn't just what somebody wants to pay. There's an appraisal process and things so there's a process to make it work, but it sometimes doesn't work out on your end of the deal. Yeah. So got those deals done. We took that $1 million roughly, and I think over the whole course of the 4 properties, I think I doubled my money in 3.5 years. So
not a bad deal.
Yeah. And beyond that, which was just like some of those things that happen in life, and you step back, you're like, oh my God, how could I have timed this any better? Like literally, I'm talking 3 to 6 months after I exited, the whole student rental market collapsed. Rents collapsed. St. Cloud State started going through some turmoil a little bit, and literally those same dollars, I probably couldn't have sold those properties for what I had into them at that point.
Sometimes in real estate and sales and anything in life, luck is better than being good at what you're doing, right?
Absolutely.
And sometimes that's what it takes.
But I vowed to never step back into student rentals. Okay. I was like, that was my parlay in and my parlay out, and at that point I had bigger aspirations, and I knew I knew about commercial real estate a little bit. I knew that there were some opportunities, and we were, at that point starting to build buildings for people. And so that was an easy way to start to look at, what's our next step into real estate. And so
what was that next step?
So that fast forward to 2008.
So you sold them. What year did you sell them?
So I sold them in 2003, probably something like that.
Sold
so
2003.
I don't even know at that time if 1031s exchanges existed. Like I think about the tax code at that juncture. I'm not sure that 1031s even existed.
You didn't surround yourself with the right people to know either way.
Right. And that's a great point of going, I had a CPA firm that was just starting out, and I was basically fledgling construction company, and all of that stuff came together. I'm like, yeah, do my taxes, but tax strategies, looking at how I could better my tax situation. What should I be doing with this sale? Yep. None of those questions existed at that point. So paid the taxes on that, moved a lot of those dollars into a manufacturing company that I was starting. And so built that manufacturing company over the next couple of years. Luckily got out with the skin of my teeth, right? The construction company was going. This manufacturing company was building commercial casework, store fixtures, and at the end, I just had to make a decision to shut it down.
Yeah.
It was just not, we were hemorrhaging tens of thousands of dollars a month. Construction company was still doing fine, so you kind of balance, like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
So summer of 2005, we kind of just said, let's reset. And I won't tell the whole story, but at the last minute, literally we had somebody walk in and buy the company from me. And that company still exists today.
Yep.
So I built a great structure. It wasn't the right business for me.
Well,
right?
you were scaling the construction company. You wanted to refocus back and scale that thing. And hey,
and lean manufacturing is something that I thought I knew.
Yeah.
I didn't know the first thing about lean manufacturing, right? I knew how to manufacture.
Yeah.
But when you take some of the real theories of lean manufacturing and you're counting steps and movements of property and product, in a world that I'm building multi-million-dollar buildings, you can apply it, but there isn't a real great correlation.
Yeah, it's not really the same. It's different thought processes.
Yeah. So then in 2005, I had an architect firm reach out to me who then was looking to exit their building. And they're like, hey, we've been toying around with some plans here. And Steve at the time, Kalkman, showed me these plans. He's like, well, we can rip it down. We can rebuild this building. We'll kind of use the basement of the existing building. And then we'll be a tenant here. We'll be your first tenant in the building. I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. I should dig a little bit deeper. And so by the summer of 2008, we're going full steam ahead on plans, financing. And so that was our first move back into commercial real estate, was our 2035 or CentraCare Square building. And things were going great. We're building the building. Heading into the fall of 2008, all of a sudden, here we're sitting in the Great Recession. And so our building was one of the last, what I'll call major buildings to be financed before that crash happened. And so we kept on proceeding. We're like, we got financing in place, my partners are in place, let's keep rolling. And I can remember March of 2009, we're having a grand opening, and we had all of our construction guys in hard hats, and Chamber was there, and we did this big event. And pomp and circumstance, like, we're trying to get people to get excited about that, and people showed up, but not one lease came out of that meeting. Not one lease from our leasing team at the time that was working for us came forward. And in fact, 3 months into the deal, all of a sudden I get this phone call from our tenants, the architects, who helped kind of get this whole ball rolling. They're going bankrupt. So I have nobody, like, no tenants. My partner's looking at me going, okay, what's our plan here?
Yeah.
And so for a year, we literally fed this building. Like, we're putting cash into it, and I'm going, trust me, partner, trust me, I know what we're gonna do. And it was one of the first times in 2010 that I really realized what commercial real estate has for a value. Mm-hmm. And so I was negotiating with our local healthcare system, and we ultimately did a deal where they took the whole building, leased the whole building. And so you go from losing $100,000 a year to making $100,000 a year in a pen stroke.
And a building being worth $1 million to $6 million.
Exactly. And we proved it several years later. We just exited that building for, I mean, I think
somewhere around there.
We literally doubled our money on that property as well. And
Correct.
I think my partner was pretty happy getting his check that day, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But that was the first time that it started to really trigger in my mind, like this is an investment, and this is the way that we can actually make money, right? Because I wasn't a real estate guy.
Yep.
I was a contractor, I was construction, and so that's where my juices started to kind of flow a little bit of like, okay, how can we do those? And so fast forward into 2012, we're getting out of the Great Recession. People were coming to us and going, hey, could you build us this custom building? And then could you find somebody to lease it for us? And so Quinlivan Hughes downtown, law firm, we were against 9 other people in that RFP, and they selected us to redevelop a site. So we were, our superpower that at that point, our value proposition for them was that we were gonna tear down an old dilapidated bowling alley, worked with the city, got TIF, got the entitlements pulled together, and we kept them in the core of downtown St. Cloud.
Yep.
That was really important to them to stay there, to do what they wanted, and we designed and built their building exactly what their specs were. Mm-hmm. And so then we did that with several other businesses along the way, yep. and you know, it kind of really set the course for even what we do today.
And what would you say the difference is from if you say you didn't have Inventure real estate when you built Sand Prairie, the 08, 09 building, because you didn't at that point. But what's the difference between managing that compared to the single family rentals? Well, for the normal, average, everyday person.
It's interesting, I had this conversation with somebody yesterday. If you think about residential, think about working nights and weekends.
Yep, because they're at home, right?
Everything happens on a personal level.
Yep.
If you think about commercial, think about working during banker hours. And that's the most simplistic way I can look at it from a purely intrinsic way, right? That, you know, does Doug want to work nights and weekends, or does Doug want to work on, you know, during the business day, right? But on top of it, then take the multiplication of 10. So if you sell a house, you're selling it for $300,000. When we're selling a commercial office building, we're selling it for $3 million.
Yep.
Our commissions are no different,
yep.
right? And so when you start to think about then the operations of it, there are 1,000 people that'll tell you they can manage your rentals for you and blah, 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 and you're fixing pipes and all this stuff that goes along with the residential. Or I could have a professional firm who is very detail oriented. They know their stuff. I can write a contract on exactly what they're going to manage for me, how they're going to maintain my building, how they're going to talk to my tenants, and I don't have to be there.
Yep. And the buildings can actually pay for it.
And the buildings actually pay for it.
Yeah.
And so when you're looking at your cash flows, you're not taking your cash flows and your return from all the money that you made in, you know, the month's rents that you got from the tenants. The tenants are paying for that, and then you still get your monthly returns, mm-hmm. which then turn into the dividends that you're figuring out how much cash on cash did I make this month.
Yeah, so it's a totally, I mean, it's a hands-on, people call it passive, right? Nothing is truly passive. Like there's always cash things that go in sometimes, or different decisions that have to be made that makes it non-passive. And everything's a time game in real estate. If you miss out on a time window to give somebody an answer, you lose a deal. We just had that happen.
Yep.
But also then looking back, before we end on, if you, so I would say we both agree on people, investors, high W2 earners, business owners, whatever it is, should always be a limited partner or an investor into a project with us or any other group that they trust to put a deal together, right? Because that's the easiest way to learn, and it's hands off for them.
Yep.
But with that same token, there's also people that are like, nah, I just want to own 100%, right? Like, I just want to own it. What's the best asset, in your opinion, and it's truly an opinion, mm-hmm. that's easiest to manage if you wanted to own one or two yourself, right? I'm talking anything from storage to multifamily to small office. So we're probably talking something under $3 million,
yeah.
right? What do you think is the easiest to manage and why?
You know, I think about anything that's a single tenant asset, number one, that class right? So I think of real estate as sectors and classes. So sectors are the things that happen. So industrial, institutional, medical, office sector, and then the classes, right? We've got kind of A, B, C.
Yeah.
But then there's also a secondary class of single tenant, multi-tenant, and there's no doubt there's benefits in both sides.
Yep.
If I was a single investor looking at, well, even if I look back at my portfolio, although 2035 was a multi-tenanted building, which I had no business stepping into that asset. Like, I mean, it was a $3 million first off asset, design build, multi-tenant. Like, you couldn't stack the chips up against me
That's one of the hardest assets
anymore, right?
Common areas to everything else.
But I converted it to a single tenant asset.
Yep.
And then in that instant, the value started to happen and the ease of operation, because you can sit with that tenant and go, hey, it's all yours, right? Depending on what lease you create, could be an absolute lease or gross modified. Obviously, those are going to have some implications. And we'll have to ask our viewers if they ever want to see any of those deeper dives on some of those things. But I would say a single tenant asset that is between 3,000 and 5,000 square feet, that's close to their geographic location. So I always say, like, can you see it? Can you go drive past it in the evening? Can you check it? You know,
do you know the market?
Do you know the market, right? Those are things. But then I'll finish with this. Like, in everything we buy, and we've got people today that come to us and say, hey, buy this asset for me and just manage it, right?
Yep.
Why are they doing that? Because they don't trust themselves in the decision process and in the management process. In fact, my own portfolio, I still have Inventure Real Estate managed for me, right? Because I can't go out to those properties. I can sure drive past one, look at it and go, yep, that's great. But we've got a team of 25 people behind us that are managing these properties, right? At $200 million, we're well over 45 properties. I can't drive in a week to go see all of our properties, right? Geographically, now we're spread out through the upper Midwest. I can't get to them. No. So I have to trust on those teams to take care of it. And with the diversity of that portfolio comes a lot of risk, right? And so we inherently take on more risk. But stepping back to your question, that single tenant asset is going to be pretty easy, but you're also going to pay a premium for it. And this is where I was going to go. So in all real estate, one of our main bedrock philosophies is you have to make money on the buy side, right? Those assets are going to trade at high multiples, low cap rates, sorry, which means you're going to pay a premium for it because they are hands off. We joke about it, but it's mailbox money, right?
You can be in California and own something in St. Cloud and you're fine.
We're this Walgreens that we're just going to acquire in the next couple weeks. Absolute lease. It's in a market we know. You guys did a masterful job of taking the value down. Like, I'm talking millions of dollars that you guys negotiated off this deal, to the point that it was ready for me to look at and go, let's acquire this. Let's bring the partnership together. And why did we raise $1.5 million in 26 hours? Because that deal made sense and will make our investors a lot of money.
Yep.
But that asset, I will drive past it. We're going to do our due diligence next week on it. But literally, I'm not even welcome to go. I'm welcome to go buy Band-Aids and flowers at Walgreens.
You better go there.
I have to go, right?
Flowers for her.
But other than that, we don't touch that building. So it is really, so as a first-time investor, it's risky, because where are you going to come up with $1.5 million? That's the challenge, right? Even a small dental clinic or a Caribou Coffee, Starbucks, right? Those things are going to trade at $2-3 million. And you have to come up with 20%, because there's no seller carrybacks. There's no, like the residential world where there's a lot of carrybacks. I mean, we've done a few carrybacks, but that's going to be more with an investor that knows us, or they're very tightly tied somehow. Yep. Most of these commercial investment groups are going to be like, no, you pay for it, it's yours. If you don't pay for it, you don't get it. And we're not helping you out in any way, shape, or form. So
we have a lot of investment theory that we can even dig into in other episodes, right? Because man, we could go on for this for probably hours.
Yep.
There's no doubt about it. But if anyone out there, while we wrap up this one, is interested in learning more about investing, wants to understand more about how we invest, what our process is, reach out to us through YouTube, through social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, at Austin Ruley, Douglas Bozer, or at Inventure. More than happy to help anyone out and talk through different processes and help people invest into real estate. That's what we're here for. So everybody have a great day, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Stay tuned.